Most traders believe something that is completely wrong, and it's not their fault. They think more tools means better results. They add indicators, more strategies, more complexity. All that leads to is more decisions and more confusion. But after 30 plus years trading, I discovered the opposite. The traders with the highest win rates, with the best risk reward strategies, the best account growth, actually use less, not more. In fact, the longer a trader trades, the less they have on their chart, the more specific the tools are to the job at hand. Today, I'll show you the framework that keeps my win rate above 62%, not through complexity, but rather through precision, through specific tools. And once you understand one key idea, everything will change. Your lines do not move the market. Buying, demand, and selling supply do. And when you start trading where institutions are active at these support and resistance levels, your results will change immediately. Most traders misunderstand charts. They believe their trend line caused the reversal. By the way, I seldom, if ever, draw trend lines. Here's why. Traders believe their support level created the bounce. But that's not true. Charts don't move markets. Buying demand and selling supply do. Institutions decide where price moves. Institutions decide where price moves. Your technical tools simply help you identify where that reaction level may be. A trend line doesn't create the reaction. It shows a zone where buyers or sellers may step in. That chart pattern doesn't create the reaction. Again, it shows where the support or resistance may be. And by the way, sellers are resistance, buyers are support. Sellers are supply, buyers are demand. And that shift in mindset changes everything. You're no longer trading your drawings. You're trading probabilities. You wait for confirmation that institutions are defending that level. And if you want to understand how institutional money flow actually moves markets, I've created a free step-by-step showing you how to read those footprints and how you can find them. You'll see the step-by-step in the direction below. My system uses 4 simple tools. First, always first, is market structure. Are we chopping or are we trending? Higher highs and higher lows, or lower lows and lower highs. Higher highs and higher lows means it's bullish. Lower highs and lower lows means it's bearish. Structure tells you direction. The next are retracements. I know a lot of folks call them Fibonacci, but believe it or not, it was created by someone named Pingala, who was an Indian mathematician and poet. So I call them Pingala retracements. You can just call them retracements. These give objective levels. It's a mathematical rule of nature that describes expansion and contraction. I like the 50%. It's really easy, but you can use the 50%, the 38%, and the 62%. Those are great levels of supply and demand, or selling and buying. Targets can come from previous day highs and previous day lows, opening range highs and lows, initial balance highs and lows. Everything becomes mechanical. The third thing are session opens. These levels are often defended by institutions. So let's go back to what the clearing range and the initial balance is. The clearing range starts at 9:30 when the cash open begins and goes to 10 a.m. Eastern time. During those 30 minutes, orders are filled. That's why they call it the clearing range. They're clearing orders out. From 9:30 to 10:30 is developing what's known as the initial balance, or the fair market zone for the morning. So keep an eye on time and price. Mark those highs and lows from 9:30 to 10 and 9:30 to 10:30. The middle of those zones, or the 50% Pingala, is a high probability level that often gets defended within those zones. Fourth, and very few people use this, volume profile. If you're using TradingView, use something called the visible range volume profile. What that is how many contracts or shares were traded at a specific price, as opposed to what the vast majority of traders do, which is they use time or date-based volume. You'll see that in the volume histogram sitting at the bottom of their charts. I do not use that. I look at price-based volume. That means a point of control. Where have the most contracts or shares been traded inside the range that you're studying? The value area high. the value area low. That's resistance and support. These show where the market considers fair value. At value area lows, look for support. That's where I would look to set up long trades. At the value area high, look for long puts or shorts. That's where I would look for resistance to form. None of these tools work alone, or frankly, every time. But when they align, they create high probability setups if you're using them within structure. One of the best ways to have high probability directional bias is make sure you're trading longs above the previous session close or shorts below the previous session close. And if you're setting up swing trades, you want to buy in bullish structure. You want to look for puts or short in bearish structure. And if this video is helping you so far, subscribe to the channel. It keeps me creating content like this, knowing it's moving the needle for you. Here's a hard truth. Most scalpers never become profitable. Why? Too many trades, too many decisions. They're using a tick chart or a 1-minute chart. You're making too many decisions. Decision fatigue is real and it's exhausting, and it leads to emotional mistakes. So my rule is really simple. Focus your day trading on a 5-minute time frame. Focus your swing trading, for the most part, on a daily time frame. Occasionally, I will use a 4-hour time frame. Those are my 3 time frames. 5-minute for day trading, most of the daily for swings or overnight trades, and occasionally I'll look at a 4-hour instead of the daily. If you're struggling, lengthen your time frame. Higher time frames happen slower. They remove noise. They can absorb a lot of intraday volatility, and ultimately they can give clearer signals. They allow for ideal risk-reward scenarios, especially when in a trend. But more importantly, they slow the game down. I'd rather take 2 high-quality swing trades per week than dozens of low-probability scalps. More activity does not mean account growth. Quality always will beat quantity. Although if you want to overtrade, your broker's going to love you. Technical analysis tells you where to enter, but looking at the scheduled events of the day, looking at the time of the day or even the time of the month in terms of options expiration or a pip below or the end of the quarter or the end of the month or contract rollover, they're going to give you an idea of volatility, and ultimately that volatility could, if it organizes, give you direction. That's where institutional positioning also matters. One tool I can use is Commitment of Trader Data, or COT. It shows what large institutions are doing. By the way, Volume Profile can do that as well. So if you're trading futures, COT is really helpful. But I always combine it with Visible Range Volume Profile and Anchored Volume Weighted Average Price. So how do you use COT data? If commercials are heavy long, that's a pretty strong signal of general bullishness. If retail traders are heavy long, I start looking for shorts because the retail is often on the wrong side or at the extremes or exhaustion of major move. When those align with technical setups, probabilities tend to improve dramatically. 2 other factors complete this picture: seasonality and interest rates. Okay, first of all, seasonals are not setups, but they are tendencies. Interest rates are about the macroeconomic picture. What is the monetary policy of the Federal Reserve? Are we going to see rate cuts, and are we expecting them, or are we going to see rate hikes, and are we expecting those? So understanding monetary policy is a huge part of understanding direction. A lot of assets move in recurring patterns throughout the year. So seasonals are a recurring pattern. Monetary policy is the pattern of the current message of the central bank. So in this case, if I'm talking about US stocks, I'm talking about the Federal Reserve and their monetary policy messaging. Certain stocks or commodities can perform better during certain specific months. Do not presume the seasonal is always going to be followed. Here's how you don't get suckered into following seasonals incorrectly. Don't just pick the day you choose to look at the seasonal. Let's say it's March and you think, oh, the seasonal pattern between March and June is bullish in crude oil. Make sure that the months preceding, February, January, December, were also in line with that seasonal. Don't presume the seasonal is going to suddenly turn on and behave the way we're expecting. Make sure it already has been. right? Most traders don't do this. Now, institutions are going to follow some of these patterns. There are certain patterns that are just based on weather and the time of year. For example, there are only certain times of year that corn is planted, when it's grown, when it's harvested. There are certain rhythms to energy. We know that as the winter months near, we can oftentimes see seasonal movement in front of winter, which is a fairly known phenomena. We'll see heating oil, we'll see natural gas start to increase in value. We have, say, for example, crude oil has a summer driving season. Crude oil doesn't move higher in June when the summer driving season begins. It starts ramping up late March into April as the summer driving season is expected to come. So remember, seasonals are not that day, this is when the move's happening. It's often a preparation for a phenomena that we know happens every single year. Now, let's talk about interest rates. They're very different than seasonals, but they're helpful. Interest rates can help move a market. Stocks love cheap money. When central banks raise rates, currencies will strengthen, and typically stocks don't love high borrowing costs. When rates fall, when they're cut, the currency of that country will typically weaken. Also, stocks love low borrowing costs. Think about what happens when a business can borrow less expensively. When rates are low, there's more hiring, training, expansion. Stocks love cheap money. Keep that in mind. That's why not the actual rate cuts, but the preparation for the rate cuts can often be so bullish. It's not cuts themselves that are bullish. It's the expectation of the cuts. These factors add another layer of confirmation to your understanding of market behavior and ultimately which way the market will move, and finally, the trade setup itself. Finally, everything connects with a mechanical system. So step one, identify the trend using market structure. Step two, wait for a pullback into that Pingala zone. Again, I like the 50%. I can also use the 62% or the 38%. Step three, check confluence or where key levels overlap. Session opens, volume profile, the seasonality, the commitment of traders, monetary policy. Think about, do all these things line up, and are they saying the same bullish type of story or bearish? If several factors align, the setup and the follow through is probably more likely. Step four is place the stop beyond structure. Fixed. So for example, if I place a stop in my account, I seldom will risk more than 2 to 3% of my account on any one trade. If I'm trading options, I seldom risk more than 25% of premium paid. I use a fixed bet strategy, which also means the size that I'm trading is fixed. I don't make one trade large, another trade smaller. I use a fixed bet approach. No guessing. Make it a formula. In fact, I use a spreadsheet in my Sector Secrets Mastery live trading community where people put in their account value and then it spits all those numbers out. How many dollars worth of contracts can you buy and stay within these fixed risk percentages? All right, step five, set targets using those high probability levels. If you're long, be aware of previous highs. If you're short, be aware of previous lows. Take a look at levels where the market has tested the support or the resistance before. Is the market breaking out to new highs? That will typically attract new retail buyers. Is the market breaking down to new lows or breaking through a key level, like the 200 period exponential moving average? That could trigger more institutional participation to the downside. Take partial profits along the way, or as I like to say, pay yourself when you can, not when you have to. So what I like to do is take an initial profit, move my stop to break even, and then look for targets 2 and 3 as the market progresses in my favor. That way, if the market pulls back suddenly, back to my entry point, I don't let a winner turn into a loser. This type of approach removes emotion. Like I mentioned before, it's mechanical. Every trade follows the same rules. And that's why my win rate stays above 62%. It's usually between 62 and 68. If we're in strong trending markets, yes, it can be above that level. But in normal markets, remember, for every 10 trades you take, be ready to lose 3 to 4 times. No one wins all the time. And by the way, An 80, 90% win rate is not what you're going for, right? A lot of times you see people talk about 80+% win rates. They're just taking profits off the table way too soon. Losing and losing well is part of trading. I'm not trying to predict the markets. I'm just waiting for high probability setups. And if I'm wrong, I have a stop loss. And if I'm right, I have up to 3 targets. But here is the real challenge. Knowing the system is one thing. Following it when real money is on the line and in real time is a whole other. In the next video, I'll show you the psychology and discipline required to actually execute a process-driven system like this. Watch that video now, and I'll see you there.